This video is called Avoiding Common Pitfalls. Those are the little traps that lie in wait for the writer to trip you up and stop your progress and sap your confidence. So we're going to have a look at some of the different things to look out for. The first of these is to do with how you begin your story, and it's called starting in the wrong place. Much more common than you might think. There is a tendency with writers, whether they're starting a long piece of fiction or a short story, to need to explain things, to want to sort of set everything up with a great deal of what's gone before and how we got here and who people are and where we are and all the rest of it. And that's understandable, but it's also deadly to the beginning of a book. And we'll look at beginnings specifically at some point, but this is really about just to warn you about start when something is happening, not before something is happening. You can always explain later. The attention span of your 21st century reader is pretty short. Even with literary fiction and something that's going to take 700 pages to unfold, you need to get hold of their attention early on. And to do that, you need to start in a piece of action. That can be dynamic action. The Witch's Daughter, actually the first sentence of The Witch's Daughter is actually Bess ran. Two-word sentence, hit the ground running quite literally. Bess ran. Something is happening, and we go on from there. And using a prologue can be a way to help you do that. We'll look at using those again, but certainly avoid layering all the backstory in. Even if people think they've got around this by starting something active, and then there they go, half a page down, we've got, too many names coming in, too much background. So watch where you start. Start in the action, don't start in the wrong place. Another thing you might like to keep in mind is your scene structure. Now, I don't know if it's because I write screenplays as well or just because I like films, but I very much write in scenes, whatever I'm writing. And I think it's a good technique for keeping your writing tight and avoiding a lot of sort of waffle. So with your scene structure, every time you sit down to write a scene, you're going to think, what is the point of this scene? Why am I writing this scene? It must be necessary to the story, so what's its point? Once you've identified that point, write it down and aim at it. And your idea is to go into the scene as late in the scene as possible and get out as early as possible. And when you've written the scene, check, did you make the point that you set out to do? And each scene is almost like a little story in itself. It has a beginning, a middle and an end, however short it is. And I think once you start to think of your writing in scenes rather than chapters, you really do write with much less flabby stuff around the edges that you don't need. So scene structure is really important, and perhaps we'll come back to writing in scenes when we look at screenplays. Another thing to consider is excuses. Excuses about why you haven't finished a chapter, why you haven't met your own self-imposed deadline, why you haven't had time, why you haven't been in the mood for writing, why the muse hasn't visited you. Frankly, you can't wait for the muse to turn up. Go out there and find her, get her by the hair if necessary, and drag her into your little writing room, if that's not too terrible an image. You need to write, and you can't use the excuses to avoid the difficult scene that you haven't quite managed to sort out in your head, or the hole in your plot that you've fallen into, or the fact that this is a bit of a joining together piece and you're a bit bored with it, or just because it's hard actually sitting down there and maintaining that energy and effort for a long time. If you make those excuses, gradually your word count goes down, your productivity goes down, and you begin to lose confidence. So everyone's busy, even people who think they aren't busy and have all the time in the world. There's always things you can do instead of writing, and I know I don't tend to do housework. It doesn't agree with me. I think it's largely unnecessary and quite often dangerous, so I don't do much housework at all. But if I get really stuck with a piece of writing, I might suddenly decide that those cooker knobs need to come off and be cleaned. So, we can all find excuses and avoid doing the actual work. So don't do that. Don't make excuses. Another pitfall that lies in wait for the unwary writer is feebleness. This is not feebleness about the activity of writing. This is holding back from those maybe slightly prickly, painful, difficult things. you've got to, I think it was Hemingway said, just open a vein and bleed onto the page, basically. If you've had a painful divorce, use that experience. Don't hold back. Those experiences, you don't have to write your actual experience, names have been changed to protect the guilty and all that, but you do have to use the feelings that those experiences taught you about. If you're writing a sex scene, stop thinking your mother's going to read the book. Forget about Aunt Mildred being shocked. Maybe Aunt Mildred will enjoy the sex scene. You can't be feeble and timid about it. You've got to commit to writing that story in the best way you probably possibly can. And if you hold back because you're a bit shy of sharing, it's not going to work. So don't be feeble. Not trusting the process is another pitfall. I think people panic if they feel that their book is not going right and that time is running out and that they've reached maybe the 40,000 word plateau. There's supposed to be a sort of thing at 40,000 words if you're writing a book, however long it is, where every writer panics and thinks, we've lost the initial enthusiasm, now I don't know where I'm going with it, and it's not all beautiful shining prose like I thought it would be. It's all got horrible and flat, and just keep going with it. Trust the process. As you go on, the sparkle will come back, the new ideas will be there to fill that plot hole. Go for a walk, maybe. Exercising the dog's always good. But very fit dogs when you get a plot hole, because you have to keep walking in the search for those solutions. But don't give up. Allow the process to work for you. And often things do come to you in dreams, and they do come to you while you're doing the washing up or driving or doing something else and trying to think about something else. The answers will come. It's part of the creative process that those things don't all come at you in one go, and you do sometimes need to allow a little bit of time. I think also it's quite helpful to set yourself personal goals with your writing, just to keep the momentum, particularly if you don't have a deadline from a publisher or something like that. Set your own deadlines. So think to yourself, okay, what do I want to achieve this month? What is my writing target for the end of this month? And how am I going to achieve that? If I need to write 5,000 words a week, is that realistic? When am I going to do it? And you check your word target at the end of each week and think, okay, I'm on target, or I need to put some more time in, or this is unrealistic, I need to scale it down. But have your target for, say, the next month. I think you can also think about longer targets. What are my ambitions for the end of this year? What do I want to have completed? Maybe you want to submit your work to 5 new agents by the end of the summer, or you want to have entered 3 new competitions by Christmas. Give yourself deadlines and stick to them, because that's quite habit forming, and it will really help you get your work out there. So I hope that's helpful. You can have the longer term goal. Dream big with that one. Have in 5 years' time, and just fill in your best wishes as a writer. And my goodness, aim for them, go for them. And good luck.